What's going on, Collider Games fans? I'm Caboose, and I'm going to be bringing you guys today my tips and tricks on ways to win in Blackout, and overall my guide on how to improve your playstyle when playing Call of Duty Blackout. Now, Blackout is, of course, the Battle Royale mode within Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and it's pretty damn tough to win. So I want to give you guys some tips, whether you're an aggressive player or a passive player, ways to help you net that #1 victory. Now, before you even pick up a gun or get ready to get into the action, the first decision that you have to make before you do anything in Blackout is pick where you want to land. And this is actually really important. This sets you on the path for the rest of the game. Now, if you're an aggressive player, I definitely recommend dropping places like firing range or Rivertown. Those are almost always right above the path of the helicopter, and it's an extremely hot drop, and there are going to be a ton of people going there. However, the risk that you are taking is that you leave it up to some luck when you land on these areas, that you'll hopefully get a good gun and some good equipment to keep yourself alive, because there's always going to be a scenario, regardless of how good you may be, where you just don't end up with a very good gun and the other people do, so you get yourself killed through that. But as an aggressive player, it's very good to drop in these areas because it just gets you used to the flow of the game, and it gets you used to some aim and everything. So in your first couple of games when you start up Blackout and you're warming up a little bit, I would recommend dropping in some of these areas, as it gets you warmed up and it gets you going right away. And then, of course, if you have a lucky match where maybe you find some good guns and you get that right equipment, you can win an area like firing range, and you're going to walk out with some of the best loot in the game, as of course a ton of people land there. However, you can also leave yourself in a scenario where you win an area like firing range and get a bunch of kills, but you're out of heals and there's just nothing to help you for the rest of that game. Now, if you're a passive player who maybe wants to play it a little bit slow, you maybe don't consider yourself the best at the game, so you don't want to drop at a place like firing range or Rivertown, I would still recommend that like 1 out of every 10 games you play at a Blackout, that you drop in one of those highly populated areas, because it's going to help you in the end. Just figuring out what not to do will help you a lot in the long run. Just seeing, okay, this is what I did wrong, I did that wrong in this game. You can figure those things out on your own when you go to those highly populated areas where you're basically forced to get into an engagement with an opponent. So I would recommend that. But if you're still one of those passive players who just wants to take it slow, take a look at the map a little bit and zoom in. There are a lot of areas around the map that aren't named, where it's just a string of houses, and usually people don't go there. Now, granted, I don't want to say it's a guarantee that there are a ton of these unnamed areas in which people don't go to, as it's a Battle Royale game, and the chances of someone landing where you're landing are not extremely low. But when you land in those unnamed areas, there is still a very good chance you're going to be there by yourself. So look at the map, zoom in, see what there is around that isn't necessarily a named area, and definitely pay attention to landing in places that aren't directly above the path of the helicopters. Now, granted, the way that the wingsuit works in Blackout makes it so that you can pretty much get to wherever you need to go as soon as you pull out that wingsuit, but if you go to those unnamed areas, usually people aren't landing there. You can land there safely, get yourself some meds, some ammo, some guns, maybe an armor or two, I don't know, but you're usually going to find yourself in those areas by yourself, and you can get looted up and have the rest of your game set up for you. Now, as that passive player, after you've already landed and you've looted up, well, what's next? What are you supposed to do next? Well, always, aggressive or passive player, pay attention to the next circle. This is so important in all BR games, especially Blackout. You gotta check where the next circle is, because if you're super far away, just get going. Do not waste any time. Especially as a passive player, you'd be surprised how important this is. Because if you're one of those passive players who maybe just wants to wait and ride the edge of the storm and get into the next circle with the storm arriving there, it can be a huge problem for you sometimes, because maybe you're just going to run into that other guy who is running into the next circle as well, and then you found yourself into an engagement where you've also got the storm on you, making things 10 times more difficult and harder to focus on your target. It's just overall a bad strategy to ride the storm, because there even could be scenarios where somebody is just waiting at the edge of the circle on the inside, watching if people are running away from the storm, trying to get within the circle, because it's a very easy kill. So just do not ride the storm. It's not a good idea. Whenever you see the next circle available, I would suggest getting there as quick as possible. Obviously, when you get to the late game where the storm doesn't move as fast but does a ton of damage, that's where you can play it a little slower, because then you can kind of move with the storm storm and ride along the edge of it, making kind of a circle motion to get inside the next circle. But when it's the earlier circles, when it's the earlier storm, just get there quick, get safe, and make sure you're all good to go. Inventory management is also really key in Blackout. You gotta pay attention to what you're picking up. If you're sitting there with 30 bandages in your inventory, taking up 3 slots when you don't need that many, then make sure you're getting rid of that stuff or dropping it for your teammates to hold, because this is such an important thing to make sure you got some free space. Now, obviously, if there comes a point where you just have to have a full inventory and it's all stuff that you need, then fine, that's okay. But if there is a time where you can have some free space, just pay attention to what you have in your inventory and see if you can free up that space. Because maybe there will come a time where you want to pick up a trauma kit off an enemy that you just took down, but your inventory's full, so you got to drop some stuff. And in the midst of doing all that, an opponent from somewhere else comes up and catches you off guard, and boom, you're dead and you're out of the game. You don't want to have those scenarios. I know this sounds like 1 in a million, but trust me, it happens plenty of times. So just pay attention to what you have in your inventory. And not just your entire backpack, but also what you have equipped. So if you want to have the 9-bang equipped, but you're getting into this close engagement and instead you've had this grenade in that slot, then you're going to toss a nade and you're going to have to get out of there so that you don't damage yourself, where you could have used the 9-bang and potentially gotten an easy kill. So this stuff is key. Just pay attention to it, especially for console players. It's a little more difficult for us to do these certain things and equip these certain items. PC, it's a lot easier, but for console players, this stuff is very important because you have to be on the ball with it. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling and fumbling when you get yourself into an intense gun battle, and you got to have a certain item equipped to help you out in that gun battle. And branching off my initial point here, for the love of God, use your equipment. I am not the best player. I'm not very good at Blackout. However, what has helped me excel and succeed in most of my engagements is that I use my equipment. So when someone has better aim than me, undeniably, when I catch him with a concussion or a 9-bang, he's done for. There is nothing they can do against that. Use your cluster bombs as well, nades, anything you can use within your equipment slot that can help towards your advantage in an engagement or a gunfight is so important. You can definitely use those shields as well. The barricades are very nice, especially if you're a passive player who maybe kind of wants to camp out in a building. Place that barricade at the stairs that lead to the upstairs or something, and someone's going to get caught in that guaranteed. And once you see that they're taking those ticks of damage, you can run over to your barricade and finish them off. Those razor wires are super important too. I usually place them right at the front door, and then I close the door so someone wants to run in, they get caught in the razor wire. Again, you see those ticks of damage and you run down and you kill them and take them out. Now, on the flip side, back to the aggressive players, if you're just jumping from place to place looking for as many eliminations as possible, know your surroundings and pay attention to them very carefully. If you're coming up on a string of houses and you think maybe they're unlooted, you want to pay attention for things like cracked glass. Not broken glass, but cracked glass. Obviously, open doors are a good sign as well that people have been there already or potentially are still there. And a big kicker is paying attention to vehicles that may be within the vicinity. If there's an ATV or a truck and the lights are still on, that means that somebody was using that vehicle and they stopped in that position and got out. So you have to keep your eyes and ears open and don't always rely on your headphones to save the day. Some people might have that dead silence perk activated and you will not hear them coming. But if you have yourself on alert and ready for any sort of engagement, then you'll be ready for those people to come and try and sneak up on you. Now, going back to my point on places to land, I would definitely recommend a place like Asylum. Asylum always has zombies that spawn there, and this can be super beneficial to play around with. You usually find yourself in a scenario where maybe someone is trying to take down a zombie, and that's when you can strike because they won't be paying attention or looking in your direction, and even if they get the chance to shoot at you, they'll just have already used a bunch of ammo on trying to take down that zombie, so maybe they're going to run out of their ammo in the clip, and that's where you can fully take them out. This can be something you can really use to work to your benefit, and especially if you win an area like Asylum and then you take out all the zombies, then you can get access to the mystery box itself, and there's almost always a level 3 armor in there and plenty of other goodies, so it's something that can really help pave the way for that #1 victory going forward in that game. But those are my tips and tricks on how to win and get yourself that #1 victory in Call of Duty Blackout. Hopefully you found this informative, whether you're a passive player or an aggressive player. And if you did find it informative and you liked the video, a positive rating is always appreciated. And you can subscribe to the Collider Games channel to get your fix on all things gaming related. I've been Caboose, and I'll see you guys later.